In my past life, my boyfriend Xiao Qinyan slipped sleeping pills into my brown sugar water. I slept so soundly that I missed the graduate school entrance exam. He whispered soothingly, so what if you don't get in? I won't think any less of you. After graduating university, I worked tirelessly to support Xiao Qinyan through his graduate studies. Just as he was about to graduate, the news of the breakup arrived. He looked at me with scorn. I've been working hard. What about you, me, to ruin you? Of course. I jolted awake from a deep sleep. In a daze, I looked around, the white sheets and duvet, the familiar room decor. Wasn't this the exact hotel I'd stayed in during my postgraduate entrance exam in my past life? In that past life, to avoid any delays for the exam, my boyfriend Xiao Qinyan and I had booked rooms in a hotel near the testing center well in advance, staying right next door to each other. Yet, despite being an early riser, I overslept on the exam day and woke up too late to make it. Xiao Qinyan said he knocked and called for me but got no response, thinking I had left first. It wasn't until he arrived at the exam hall that he realized I wasn't there. He tried calling me repeatedly but couldn't get through, and by then it was too late to come back for me. I simply thought I had missed the exam due to my own oversleeping and cried my heart out. Xiao Qinyan held me and whispered words of comfort. Perhaps it was meant to be. If you don't take the exam, so be it. You can still find a good job with just your bachelor's degree. A few months later, Xiao Qinyan successfully got into a prestigious 985 university for his master's degree, while I landed a job at a major tech company through campus recruitment, embarking on the soul-crushing 996 grind. Xiao Qinyan would constantly complain to me about his heavy academic workload and the social obligations he had to manage, saying his meager graduate stipend was nowhere near enough to allow him to focus on his studies. I ended up subsidizing him with almost all the salary and bonuses I earned from working day and night. At school, he used my hard-earned money to wine and dine a junior female student. After graduation, he dumped me without a second thought and ran off with her to start their new life together. I couldn't accept it and demanded to know how I had ever wronged him. He looked down at me with an arrogant sneer, his eyes full of mockery. Li Ningning, I've been moving forward all these years, while you've stayed exactly where you are, with no ambition to better yourself. What makes you think you're good enough for me? His words left me speechless. On my way home, I was in a daze and was hit and killed by a speeding car. It wasn't until I was lying in the hospital, dying, that I learned the truth. Back then, Xiao Qinyan had slipped sleeping pills into my brown sugar water. His plan was to make me miss the exam so I'd become his personal ATM, funding his education. My regret was useless now. With overwhelming hatred and bitter resentment, I drew my last, unwilling breath. Heaven has eyes. I was actually reborn. After gathering my thoughts, I took out my phone. Sure enough, there were 2 missed calls from Xiao Qinyan on the screen, his usual insincere gesture. I don't know if my resentment was so strong it altered fate, but I woke up a full half-hour earlier than in my previous life. It was just 8:18 now. Given the distance from the hotel to the exam hall, I knew I wouldn't make it on time if I walked normally, but if I ran, I figured I could still get in before 8:45. With that thought, I immediately threw off the covers and bolted out of the room. Time was of the essence. I sprinted for my life down the street and finally made it into the exam hall at 8:44. Phew, my chance to take the exam was safe. Xiao Qinyan was in the same exam hall as me. When he saw me rush into the classroom, his face was a complex mix of shock and fury. Xiao Qinyan wanted to take the postgraduate entrance exam but was unwilling to do the hard work of researching options. He just latched onto me like a parasite, even copying my exact choice of target university and major. My grades were far better than his, so my chances of getting in were naturally much higher. By preventing me from taking the exam, he would not only eliminate a strong competitor but also keep me around to earn money and support him, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. What a scheming, penniless man. I gave him a long, hard look before taking my seat. I had prepared for this exam for a full 2 years, so the questions weren't particularly difficult for me, even with the delay of over 10 minutes. I managed to complete the test without issue. After handing in my paper, while I was still packing my things, Xiao Qinyan rushed over in a few quick strides. He confronted me coldly, demanding, Ningning, where did you run off to this morning? I called you several times, and you didn't answer. You almost made us miss the exam. Ha, I haven't even settled the score with him yet, and he's already playing the victim, remembering the grudges from my past life. I wanted nothing more than to reach out and tear that hypocrite Xiao Qinyan's face to shreds. But there was still an exam coming up. I couldn't afford to act on impulse now. Clenching my fists tightly to suppress the hatred, I said coldly, Xiao Qinyan, I live right next door to you. You left quietly by yourself without even calling me. You were just hoping I'd miss the exam, weren't you? After all these years together. I've always been gentle and considerate towards Xiao Qinyan. Never have I spoken to him with such sharpness before. He was taken aback for a moment, furrowing his brow as he said, Ningning, what are you implying? You're the one who overslept because you were being lazy. How can you possibly blame me for that? Just a moment ago, you claimed you didn't know where I had gone. So how is it that you now know I overslept? I keenly seized the inconsistency in Xiao Qinyan's words and replied with a knowing, half-smile, it couldn't be that you deliberately let me oversleep, could it? As the saying goes, a guilty conscience needs no accuser. Upon hearing this, a flicker of fear flashed through Xiao Qinyan's eyes, but he was no fool, and quickly masked it with a show of indignation. What are you trying to say, Li Ningning? Exactly what I said. I ignored Xiao Qinyan, turned around, and walked out of the examination hall on my own. On the way back to the hotel, I thought about calling the police. But as my finger hovered over the 110 on the screen, I forcefully stopped myself. Last night, Xiao Qinyan brought me that cup of brown sugar water in a disposable paper cup. After I drank it, he casually took the cup away with him. At the time, I didn't think much of it, just assuming he had a habit of tidying up. But now, looking back, his foresight was chilling. He was covering his tracks, destroying the only piece of evidence right then and there. In case I grew suspicious later, reporting it to the police now would likely lead nowhere and only tip him off. Let's just hold off for now. We can talk about everything after the exams are over. Lost in thought, I found myself back at the hotel without realizing it. I had just stepped into the elevator when Xiao Qinyan came rushing up in a panic. He was probably afraid I had noticed something earlier, which is why he didn't dare show up, seeing that I wasn't making any move to call the police. He finally felt relieved. Ningning, please don't be angry. I shouldn't have lost my temper with you. I called out to you this morning and tried calling you, but you never responded. I thought, hearing the exact same spiel as last time. I was inwardly sneering, but kept my expression neutral as I said, it's not about you. I'm just in a bad mood and spoke too harshly. Given Xiao Qinyan's ruthless and cunning nature, if one scheme failed, he'd inevitably find another opportunity to come after me. I had to keep my cool and lull him into a false sense of security. Only then would I get the chance to nail him with ironclad evidence and send him to prison to do hard labor. Upon hearing this, Xiao Qinyan visibly relaxed. He then pulled a cup of bubble tea from his bag and said with a beaming smile, my fault, all my fault. I bought this specially to apologize. Drink it while it's hot. My brow furrowed slightly as I watched the milk tea in Xiao Qinyan's hand. Is he really that eager to make his move again? That thought had barely crossed my mind before I dismissed it. Just now, Xiao Qinyan thought I had noticed something and had been watching me cautiously the whole way. If he tried something now and I called the police, wouldn't he just be walking right into a trap? Since there's no way to interfere, it's best to maintain the status quo and avoid tipping our hand. With that thought, I casually took the milk tea, took a sip, and said flatly, thanks. Seeing me drink the milk tea without any hesitation, Xiao Qinyan's tense expression visibly relaxed. Seizing the opportunity to curry favor, he said, you must be hungry. Let's go get something to eat together. No need, I'd like to rest a bit longer. I shook my head and went straight back to my room. Back in the room, I tossed the milk tea in my hand into the trash, quickly dug out my English review notes from the suitcase, and ran through them in my mind as fast as I could. In my past life, my English grades were decent, but after 3 years of hectic work, I'd forgotten many key points. Even though I'd seen the exam questions afterward, I only had a vague memory of them. I always needed a quick review to be absolutely sure. Fortunately, the afternoon exam went smoothly. To prevent any further complications, I used the excuse that the budget hotel by the street was too noisy, left Xiao Qinyan behind, and moved to a slightly farther 5-star hotel. As soon as the exam was over, I immediately bought a return high-speed rail ticket, grabbed my suitcase, and headed straight for the train station. I had just arrived at the station when Xiao Qinyan's call came through. I stared coldly at my phone screen, only leisurely pressing the answer key after the other party had persistently called for the 8th time. As soon as I answered, before I could say a word, Xiao Qinyan's furious voice came through the line, Ningning, how many times have I told you not to run off? Where are you? I'm at the train station, heading back to campus. Why did you go to the station without waiting for me? That's so selfish, as usual. Xiao Qinyan seized the moral high ground with righteous indignation and proceeded to boss me around. Fine, I won't hold it against you, just hurry up and buy my ticket, I'm on my way. Xiao Qinyan came from a very poor family and relied entirely on financial aid and student loans to attend university. I paid for all the accommodation and high-speed rail tickets for this postgraduate entrance exam. And I even covered his registration fee. I must have been blind in my past life to ever believe that a freeloader who sponges off women at every turn would have a conscience. The thought made me nauseous. My grip on the phone tightened instinctively as I said coldly, "My train is about to leave, I can't wait for you. As for your ticket, didn't they teach you in kindergarten to handle your own business?" Dead silence fell on the other end of the line, and I hung up without a moment's hesitation. Forget meeting him in person. Just the thought of Xiao Qinyan's face flashing in my mind makes me want to stab him with a knife, so why not just break up? Of course, I had to give him another chance to harm me, so I could catch him red-handed. As my thoughts raced, Xiao Qinyan's voice call came through again. I couldn't be bothered to deal with him, so I just turned my phone off, freed from the tense pressure of exams. I completely relaxed and slept the whole way to my destination. When I carried my suitcase back into my familiar dorm room, I was suddenly hit with a sense of how much time had passed. My roommate Wang Qiqi, who went to a university closer to home, was already back. Seeing me walk in, her finger, which had been scrolling through short videos, paused for a moment as she remarked sarcastically, well, look who's back so early, couldn't bear to be away from us, oh mighty pure love warrior. Wang Qiqi is blunt and straightforward. Back when I first started dating Xiao Qinyan, she warned me several times that he was a sly, unreliable character. She told me to look out for myself more and stop pouring all my money into him. When she found out I had overslept and missed an exam, she was full of suspicion, asking me point blank if I had eaten or drunk anything Xiao Qinyan gave me before going to bed that night. I was so blinded by my own stupidity that I not only failed to appreciate her concern, but I also felt Wang Qiqi's suspicion of Xiao Qinyan was an insult to him. I ended up having a huge fight with her over it. After that, Wang Qiqi was completely heartbroken and never spoke to me again. Seeing her again now, I felt a sudden lump in my throat and almost burst into tears. Seeing my eyes instantly well up, Wang Qiqi propped herself up in bed, looking a bit flustered. She frowned and said, "I only said a couple of things. Are you trying to guilt-trip me now?" "No way." I didn't want to cry, but remembering everything from my past life, the tears just wouldn't stop. I bit my lip and said, "Qiqi, thank you." Wang Qiqi looked utterly bewildered. "What are you thanking me for?" "For reminding me that Xiao Qinyan is no good. I've decided to break up with him. For the past 3 years, my hopeless romantic persona has been rock solid." Hearing this, a huge question mark immediately appeared on Wang Qiqi's face. She looked me up and down, confirming I wasn't joking, and her tone grew even more serious. "What happened?" I changed into my pajamas and sat down in the chair. Then told Wang Qiqi about how I drank the brown sugar water Xiao Qinyan sent me the night before the exam, overslept the next morning, and almost missed the first test. It's obvious, anyone with half a brain could figure out that brown sugar water was definitely suspicious. Wang Qiqi, with her immense capacity for empathy, slammed her hand down on the table with such force that the water glasses rattled. "Something that awful happened, and you didn't call the police right then and there." "I only had my suspicions, no proof. Making a scene by calling the police wouldn't have gotten me anywhere, and it would have just messed with my exams." I shook my head and cautioned her. "I haven't had a complete falling out with Xiao Qinyan yet. Once he's back at school, he's definitely going to come bothering me. I'm telling you this to warn you. Keep your distance from him. I don't want him thinking you're the one who talked me into breaking up with him and then doing something to hurt you." I was so foolish back then. Whatever Wang Qiqi told me, I would repeat it verbatim to Xiao Qinyan, which is exactly why he came to utterly despise her. He's always been the vindictive type. During Wang Qiqi's job interview probation period, he reported her for having questionable personal conduct in college. Thankfully, the school didn't just take his word for it. They investigated immediately and cleared things up, which prevented Wang Qiqi from losing the opportunity. But honestly, it's better if such disgusting things just don't happen in the first place. Don't worry. Of course it's best to stay as far away from that scumbag as possible. Wang Qiqi's face was etched with unconcealed disgust. When she looked up at me again, her expression held a hint of frustration, as if she thought I was hopeless. "He's scheming against you so blatantly, and you still won't cut ties with him. Haven't you had enough of being his doormat? How could that be? Seeing the disgusted look on Wan Chi-Chi's face, as if she'd caught a bad case of lovesickness, I explained with a mix of amusement and exasperation, he nearly ruined years of my hard work. I can't just let this go. I have to find the evidence and make sure he faces the law. Otherwise, what was the point of being reborn? Hearing this, Wan Chi-Chi visibly relaxed, then added after a moment's thought, it's easier to be a thief for 1,000 days than to guard against one for 1,000. You need to be careful too. Don't accept any food or drink from him. If something were to go wrong, you'd regret it for the rest of your life, right? Wang Chi-Chi's warning was no exaggeration. A few years ago, in a desperate bid to secure a position in the National Civil Service exam, someone took a huge risk. They spiked the top scorer's drink with a banned substance and then reported it to the hiring authorities, although a thorough investigation later confirmed the candidate had been framed. The fact that he had ingested the banned substance was undeniable. According to the relevant regulations, he was permanently disqualified from ever holding a public office position. My goal was only to gather evidence of Xiao Qinyan's crimes. I never intended to get myself caught up in this mess. After that, Wang Chi-Chi and I discussed some potential interview questions before we each went to bed. I was woken up early the next morning by a phone call. Damn it. I forgot Xiao Qinyan had 2 phone numbers. I missed blocking the other one. I swiftly hit the decline button and dragged the number into the blacklist. The moment I blocked it, a text from Xiao Qinyan came through. Li Ningning, you are truly heartless. Do you have any idea I spent the whole night on a hard seat coming back? I'm so exhausted. I feel like I'm falling apart. Before I could even process it, a second message immediately popped up. I went to a university so far away just to be with you, and you abandoned me to take the comfortable high-speed train by yourself. If you had even a shred of conscience left, you'd be tormented by guilt every single day. I was so infuriated by Xiao Qinyan's shameless words that I could only laugh. He was the one too lazy to research schools and majors, too lazy to take notes, and too broke to afford tutoring. He just leeched off me the whole time. And even sabotaged my exam opportunity early on because he was afraid I'd do better than him, and now he has the nerve to claim he was just keeping me company during the exams. If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I'd never have believed someone could be so shameless. Bite your tongue and get ovarian cysts, take a step back and get breast hyperplasia. I shot back without holding back. Xiao Qinyan, have you no shame? Do I need to itemize every single penny you've spent of my money over these 2 years of exam prep? Poverty stifles ambition. Financial hardship was Xiao Qinyan's greatest weakness, and he predictably fell silent. I thought hitting his Achilles heel would buy me at least a few days of peace, but I had sorely underestimated just how shameless Xiao Qinyan could be. He cornered me downstairs at the dorm and, to my shock, dropped to his knees right there in public. With tears streaming down his face, he launched right into his performance. Ningning, I know you're still mad at me. I shouldn't have failed to set extra alarms for you. And I definitely shouldn't have just left for the exam after knocking on your door a few times with no answer. I'll never do it again, I swear. I'd even throw away my own future and skip the exam with you if I have to. A scheming, broke man like him is a master at playing the victim and twisting the truth. That dramatic kneel, combined with his tearful plea, instantly won him a wave of sympathetic looks from the crowd. Soon, people around us started whispering and casting glances in my direction. Seriously, you overslept and almost missed the exam, and you have the nerve to blame others. Exactly, a man's dignity is priceless. Making your boyfriend kneel at the drop of a hat is just controlling and disgusting. Ugh. They think they're so great just because they have a bit of money, don't they? Seeing that he had successfully stirred up public opinion, a fleeting glint of smug satisfaction flashed in Xiao Qinyan's eyes before he quickly made himself appear even more weak and helpless, murmuring, please don't scold Ningning. She's usually the gentlest and kindest person. It's not what you think. Watching Xiao Qinyan's clumsy performance, I couldn't help but sneer inwardly. The reason he dared to act so brazenly was simply because he was convinced I was a fool who wouldn't suspect anything was wrong with that cup of brown sugar water, thinking I was only angry that he hadn't woken me up. No matter how I performed on the written exam, he would still have a chance to pull some strings before the interview. I'm destined to fail the grad school entrance exam, and he's determined to keep me, his personal cash cow, firmly tethered to his side. Too bad for him, his little scheme is doomed to fail. Seeing the act had gone on long enough, I squeezed out a few timely tears. Wiping my eyes, I sobbed, Xiao Qinyan, have you no conscience? For the past 2 years while you were preparing for the exam, I brought you meals, did your laundry, organized your notes, signed you up for prep courses, I even paid for your exam registration and accommodation fees. Just because I couldn't afford a high-speed rail ticket and you had to take the regular train back to school, you hold such a grudge, you have to humiliate me in public like this. I was practically shouting, my voice booming, watching the crowd of onlookers grow by another 2 rings. I then dropped to my knees with a thud. I come from an ordinary family too, my monthly allowance is just that little, I really have no more money to give you, please, I'm begging you, just let me go. With that, she kowtowed twice to Xiao Chenyan, her head thumping loudly against the floor. So it's just a performance of kneeling and playing the victim, who can't do that. I can even add some extra drama, a few kowtows are nothing. It not only wins me the court of public opinion but also shortens the life of that undeserving Xiao Chenyan. 2 birds with 1 stone. For over 2 years together, I had always been a gentle, clinging vine of a girl. Xiao Chenyan had never seen me in such a deranged state. He was so startled that he shot to his feet and scrambled away. As luck would have it, Wang Qiqi happened to be returning to the dormitory just then. She had long been disgusted by Xiao Chenyan's shameless behavior and, being a straightforward and righteous person, she yanked me up from the ground while planting her hands on her hips and berating him. Wang Qiqi had an excellent memory. She remembered every single one of the outrageous things Xiao Chenyan had done to me over the years. Crystal clear, with each new point she made, the scorn from the onlookers grew stronger. There isn't a girl who doesn't despise a scumbag. Those who just moments ago thought I was arrogant and overbearing all turned their criticism towards Xiao Chenyan, calling him a total jerk. He never imagined the situation would escalate to this point and slunk away in disgrace. The whole scene was recorded by many classmates and became the hot topic of conversation in various alumni group chats. I had no intention of letting him off that easily. Back in my dorm, I compiled all the expenses from our over 2-year relationship and everything I ever did for him into a detailed mind map, which I then posted on the campus confession wall. And just like that, Xiao Chenyan was utterly and completely socially ruined. The whole farce raged on for a full 3 days, and everyone thought it was finally over. But that was merely the appetizer. What I need to do is thoroughly provoke Xiao Chenyan before the written exam results come out. People make foolish moves when they're angry, especially when that same move almost worked before. He had no choice but to take a desperate gamble at the last moment. All I had to do was vanish completely from Xiao Chenyan's world before that happened. So, Wang Qiqi and I packed our bags and headed to Sanya for a trip. I covered all the expenses, a small way to make up for what I owed her from a past life. In my past life, I landed a job at a major tech company right after graduation, to earn enough money so Xiao Chenyan could focus on his studies. I worked endless overtime, burning the candle at both ends. I ended up with a whole host of work-related health issues while still young. That's why I treasure this hard-won free time all the more. I spent the entire holiday just lying low and resting, trying to make up for all the vacation I never got to take in my previous life. During this time, Xiao Chenyan, who had become a complete social pariah at school, still didn't give up on trying to reach me. When I didn't answer his calls, he bombarded me with messages, apologizing and admitting his mistakes. Time and again, he hinted, sometimes subtly, sometimes not, that pursuing a master's degree wasn't really worth it anyway. In his words, master's graduates are a dime a dozen these days, and they still can't find jobs after graduation. It's better to just start working after getting your bachelor's degree. You'd gain 3 more years of work experience that way. I wasn't planning to engage with him, but after seeing so many of these messages, I eventually lost my patience and fired back a blunt reply. Just because they're everywhere doesn't mean you could get into grad school yourself. Besides, given your family's financial situation, the sensible thing would be to start working early and help support your household. Some people are just born gluttons for punishment. After I shut him down a few times, Xiao Yan's annoying antics became noticeably less frequent. In a comfortable and easy life, the days flew by, and before I knew it, the day of the results announcement had arrived. Although I took the exam on short notice, thanks to my solid foundational skills from my past life and a faint memory of some actual test questions, I performed exceptionally well and scored an outstanding 380 points. With this written exam score, as long as I attend the interview on time and don't suddenly lose my mind and attack the examiner, I'm definitely in. As for Xiao Chenyan, his study habits were sporadic at best. and with a weak foundation to begin with. In his previous life, his written exam score was only 20 points above the interview cutoff. That was only because he had used underhanded tactics to eliminate me. A strong competitor, beforehand, with his mind at ease, he managed to overperform. In this life, he wasn't so lucky. His scores were even worse than before, and he barely scraped past the interview cutoff line, unless every single candidate ahead of him chokes under pressure and underperforms at the critical moment. His chances of getting in are next to none, just a benchwarmer, that's all. Xiao Qinyan never expected things to turn out this way. He couldn't sit still any longer and started calling me over and over, using different people's phone numbers, when I didn't answer. He launched a frantic barrage of text messages. He tried every trick in the book, cajoling, coaxing, deceiving, and even threatening, all with one single goal, to make me voluntarily give up the interview opportunity. I watched Xiao Qinyan's pathetic, impotent rage with cold detachment, and my contempt for him only grew. My contempt wasn't just for him, but for my past self. How could I have been so blind, to have fallen for such trash, a pretty face with absolutely nothing else to recommend him? Love-struck foolishness will be the death of you. Impotent rage aside, Xiao Qinyan wasn't about to give up on what he saw as his rightful graduate school opportunity. Once he found out I was back on campus, his phone calls shifted into overdrive, a relentless barrage of tearful pleas begging me to meet him. This time, I didn't say no. I could have gone straight from home to the target university for the interview. The only reason I made a detour back to campus was to flush the snake out of its hole. If I never showed up, how would this desperate, cornered act ever play out? I put on a full face of makeup and had Xiao Qinyan wait for me in the garden by the school's artificial lake. Throughout my college years, I was completely devoted to my studies, with hardly any time to focus on my appearance. When I appeared in his line of sight, looking completely transformed, a flash of stunned admiration passed through Xiao Qinyan's eyes. This sense of wonder softened some of the harshness in Xiao Qinyan's demeanor. With a smile, he stepped forward and took my hand. Ningning, you look so much more beautiful than before. Once you distance yourself from toxic people and live a more comfortable life, it naturally shows in your appearance. I took a step back. Avoiding Xiao Qinyan's touch with disgust, I raised an eyebrow slightly and said, whatever you have to say, make it quick. I need to get back to preparing for my English-speaking interview. That's right, I mentioned the interview on purpose, just to get under Xiao Qinyan's skin. Sure enough, at the mention of the word interview, Xiao Qinyan's expression grew tense once more. He didn't even bother with any subtlety, launching right into a self-righteous, earnest lecture. Ningning. They always say the man should work outside and the woman should manage the home. After we get married, I'll naturally be the one out there hustling to make money. Why put yourself through the grind of a master's degree? Xiao Qinyan, your memory isn't great, is it? I broke up with you last time when you made that scene outside my dorm. Even if we hadn't broken up, I paused for a moment, letting him think I was just putting on an act and couldn't bear to actually leave him. Before delivering the final blow, even if we were still together, with you being flat broke, what makes you think you could marry me? The truth is often hard to swallow. I had hit a nerve with Xiao Qinyan, and his face instantly darkened with unconcealed resentment. My gaze towards Xiao Qinyan grew even more contemptuous. I couldn't be bothered to say another word and walked straight back to the dorm without a backward glance, leaving him alone and disheveled in the cold wind. Resentful as he was, Xiao Qinyan still tried every trick in the book to persuade me to give up the interview. He even got his parents to call me, asking me to step aside for the sake of his future. As compensation, they were willing to make an exception and offer a 50,000 yuan bride price when we got married. 50,000, that's a sum that could ruin their entire family. I flat out refused without a second thought. I immediately sent over a detailed breakdown of all the money Xiao Qinyan had spent of mine over the years, demanding they pay it back immediately or face a lawsuit. It goes without saying that my actions would cause an absolute uproar in Xiao Qinyan's household. The timing is just about right. The more furious and resentful Xiao Qinyan gets, the more he'll trip over his own feet. I've been waiting for the moment he's cornered and desperate. Sure enough, the night before the interview arrived quickly. Xiao Qinyan called me again, his tone humble and submissive, pleading to see me. So, it's finally time to make a move. I've been looking forward to this. A faint smile touched my lips as I gladly accepted the invitation. True to form, Xiao Qinyan was as stingy as ever. Even at this critical juncture, he couldn't bring himself to treat me to a proper meal, opting instead for a cheap mala shangwa place by the school gate. Seeing me arrive as promised, He visibly relaxed, eagerly pulling out a chair for me. He casually handed me the orange juice with pulp that was sitting in front of him and said with a warm smile, "Ning Ning, you must be thirsty after your trip, have some water first." I was already on guard. Why would I drink something Xiao Qinyan offered me at a time like this? But to avoid raising his suspicions, I took it out of habit anyway. Then, I let my gaze sweep over the dishes on the table, feeling distinctly unenthusiastic. I'm not in the mood for this anymore. There's a duck neck shop next door. Go get me some spicy duck necks. At this, Xiao Qinyan, ever the eager to please, immediately got up and left. Once he was gone, I pulled the pre-prepared bottle of pulpy orange from my bag and swiftly swapped it with the one on the table. No matter what drug Xiao Qinyan had in mind, spiking a drink was the easiest and most convenient method. Xiao Qinyan knows that pulpy orange is my favorite drink. To leave nothing to chance, he's bound to have it ready. I anticipated his move and prepared an identical bottle of pulpy orange in my bag ahead of time. Of course, if my prediction was wrong and he brought a different drink, I'd make him switch to pulpy orange and then find a chance to swap them out. He loves being a know-it-all, doesn't he? Well, he can enjoy the fruits of his own cleverness. Xiao Qinyan returned quickly with the duck necks. Seeing that I had already drunk a good portion of the orange juice with pulp I'd poured into my glass, a barely concealed glint of triumph flashed in his eyes, and he kept urging me to eat more of the dishes. Seeing him pick up his chopsticks first, I was sure there were no illicit drugs in this spicy stir-fry pot. To put his mind at ease, I also started eating without worry, and now, the moment for the real show to begin had arrived. Just as I expected, the very next morning. No sooner had I arrived at the interview location than the police showed up. The officer flashed his badge and said sternly, "Ms. Li Ningning, your boyfriend, Xiao Qinyan, has reported you for using illegal substances. You'll need to come with us." "That's impossible, I haven't." I whipped my head around to stare at Xiao Qinyan, my face a mask of utter disbelief. I thought Xiao Qinyan would be smarter. At least smart enough to make an anonymous report. Turns out he's a complete fool. Brazenly filing a report under his real name, well, that just makes it all the easier for the police to uncover the truth and clear my name. Thinking he had successfully outsmarted me, Xiao Qinyan put on his pitiful, innocent act again. "Ningning, please don't blame me. Fighting drugs is everyone's responsibility. I just couldn't stand by and watch you go down that dark path, getting in deeper and deeper." "Fine then. We'll just see who comes out worse for wear." I cooperated fully and went with the police to the station for questioning. After a series of hair and urine tests, it was confirmed that there wasn't a single trace of any illicit substances in my system. "Officer, I told you I was framed. I have a graduate school interview coming up, and I'm certain Xiao Qinyan is trying to sabotage me. He's approached me countless times before." Demanding I withdraw from the interview and give him the spot. At the police station, I was sobbing uncontrollably, pleading through gritted teeth for the officers to get justice for me. I have every single text message Xiao Qinyan ever sent me, and I recorded both times we met. The evidence is solid. Given the circumstances, Xiao Qinyan is definitely the most likely person to have falsely accused me. The police officer naturally considered him a prime suspect. While giving my statement, I casually mentioned that Xiao Qinyan had taken me out to eat and given me a bottle of pulpy orange. I sobbed. Xiao Qinyan is a total scumbag. During the postgraduate entrance exam written test, I almost overslept and missed it after drinking the brown sugar water he gave me. This time, I was careful and didn't drink the pulpy orange he offered. Could that bottle be? The officer quickly picked up on the scent of foul play and asked, "Where is that bottle of pulpy orange now?" "I left it in the hotel room." I had initially considered keeping it on me, but then I thought better of it. Such a crucial piece of evidence shouldn't be presented in a way that seems too deliberate. This way is just right. The police didn't dare waste a single moment. They immediately went to the hotel room and retrieved that bottle of pulpy orange. Tests confirmed that it had indeed been laced with illegal substances. If I had drunk it, forget about the graduate school interview. I would have been barred from any national level examination for life. The police quickly obtained the surveillance footage from the Mala Xiangguo restaurant, confirming that I had indeed switched the drinks while Xiao Qinyan was away. Furthermore, Xiao Qinyan's fingerprints were found on the bottle of Gualacheng orange juice. Xiao Qinyan, of course, vehemently denied any involvement and refused to admit any connection to the incident. Unfortunately for him, by this point, the case had escalated to the level of a criminal offense. It was no longer something he could simply talk his way out of. The police examined Xiao Qinyan's phone and computer, Although the crucial information had been deleted, recovering it through technical means wasn't difficult. They confirmed that the contraband drugs were purchased by Xiao Qinyan through a contact on the black market. Following the trail, they also busted a black market operation. With the evidence ironclad, Xiao Qinyan had no defense. He switched back to his tearful, pitiful act, claiming he had a momentary lapse in judgment and begged me to let him go. I responded with a contemptuous sneer, dismissing his words as complete nonsense. Spare him, whoever spared me, in this life or the last. Trash like him belongs in prison, sewing until he drops dead. Xiao Qinyan was officially incarcerated, given his utterly despicable nature. I tipped off several media outlets to deliberately publicize the incident, ensuring this heinous crime became common knowledge. Xiao Qinyan has completely provoked public outrage. He is now facing severe criminal penalties, and his entire youth is destined to be spent behind bars. Xiao Qinyan's shrew of a mother keeps calling me, alternating between pleading and cursing. I don't argue back. I just collect the evidence and file a lawsuit. Perfect. Mother and son will be reunited in prison soon enough. By the time I had dealt with all of this, I had already secured a place in my dream graduate program, having topped both the written exam and the interview. In my new academic environment, I get along wonderfully with my advisor and lab mates. We share a common purpose, working tirelessly together towards our research goals and consistently achieving breakthrough experimental results. The life I lost to Xiao Qinyan in my past existence has finally, in this lifetime, gotten completely back on track. Just as I had always dreamed, I have become a research scientist who contributes meaningfully to society. 6 months later, the trial for Xiao Qinyan's poisoning case officially commenced. Convicted on multiple charges and sentenced to 10 years in prison, Xiao Qinyan appealed the verdict. But the higher court upheld the original ruling. He had grown fat and ugly. A far cry from the dashing, spirited man of his past life. Hunched over, he looked like a wretched, useless waste of space. See, a life built on theft always comes due. Xiao Qinyan watched me from a distance, his mouth opening and closing as if he were trying to say something. Judging by the shape of his mouth, he seemed to be saying he remembered his past life, that he knew he was wrong and regretted it. What past life? There's no such thing. The people in the courtroom would just think he'd gone mad from being locked up in the detention center, and quickly had the police drag him away. I didn't look back at Xiao Qinyan. I turned and walked away without a second glance. Life must go on. Xiao Qinyan has paid the price for his vile actions, and I no longer need to carry my hatred for him through life. He and I are finished, in this life and the next. Outside the courthouse, the sun was shining brightly. My wonderful life is just beginning. Story 2. My sister and I were the most beautiful twins in the orphanage, simultaneously noticed by a family of doctors and a top-tier wealthy family. In our past life, my sister chose the wealthy family for their fortune, stepping into that top-tier Maybach without hesitation. Little did she know what awaited her was a disabled, temperamental young master of the wealthy family. My sister was told she was his dog in life, and after the young master's death, she was forced to be buried alive with him. Raised in a family of doctors, I became the golden prodigy of the hospital, pampered like a princess alongside my genius but aloof stepbrother. My sister, consumed by jealousy, stabbed me to death on my wedding day. Why should I be the only one living such a miserable life? When I opened my eyes again, we had returned to the day we were adopted. This time, my sister took the initiative to hold the doctor's wife's hand first. I smiled as I watched her triumphant figure walk away. Can't even outplay a brainless rich young master, and you think you can outsmart a cunning Yandere. 1. The Shen and Li families left the choice to me and my sister. Cici, Ran. The two of you decide for yourselves who you want to go with. I was just about to say I wouldn't choose either when my sister eagerly took Madame Shen's hand. Auntie, you're so beautiful. And you have such a lovely fragrance. I want to go with you. At that moment, I realized my sister must have also been reborn, because she made a completely different choice from our previous life. On this day in our past life, both the medical Shen family and the wealthiest Li family came to the orphanage to select children, explicitly requesting girls. My sister and I, being the most beautiful twins in the orphanage, were immediately chosen by both the Shen and Li families. They also gave the choice to us sisters. That year, my sister and I were only 8 years old. None of us had much understanding of medicine, but upon hearing the term richest man, my sister eagerly grabbed the hand of the richest man's wife, exclaiming, "Auntie, you're so beautiful, I'll go with you." Just like that, my sister left with the richest man. while I was taken home by the Shin family of medicine. Over a decade later, I became the golden-handed surgeon at the hospital. And the childhood bond with my foster brother became a celebrated tale, with everyone saying we were a match made in heaven. Whether it was my foster parents or my foster brother, they all treated me with utmost kindness. To outsiders, I am the little princess of the Shin family, the object of envy and jealousy for thousands, having reached Rome by being adopted by the Shins. Among them is my sister. It turns out that after she returned home with the tycoon, she never had a single good day. The tycoon's family has complicated relationships, including a stepmother renowned for her virtue and a deranged, gloomy son. The reason the richest man's wife wanted to adopt a girl was publicly stated as giving her stepson a younger sister to make him happy. Privately, however, she had a different explanation when speaking to the sister. Cece, the reason I brought you back is for you to play with your brother and keep him happy. Remember, your brother is everything to you. If he's well, you'll be well. If anything happens to him, you must be buried with him. Do you understand? The sister tried to run away several times, but was always caught and brought back by the powerful and influential richest family. The richest man's stepson initially had no interest in his sister, but her repeated escape attempts caught his attention. Like a grasshopper tied to a string, no matter how much it struggles and tries, it can't escape the restraint of the rope. Thus, the sister truly became the human plaything of the Lee family. She grew up in such an environment, her personality already twisted, so when she saw how well the Shin family had raised me, spoiling me like a little princess, the jealousy in her heart turned into raging flames, burning away her last shred of reason. On the day of my wedding to my adopted brother, my sister rushed at me with a knife and stabbed me to death. In the second before I collapsed, I heard her screaming hysterically, "Why am I the only one living such a miserable life?" Yet the very next moment, the knife embedded in my heart was pulled out. It's my foster brother indeed. His face was expressionless, his pitch-black eyes utterly calm, yet he kept stabbing my sister over and over, until my sister too collapsed on the ground. I turned my head to look at my sister one last time, then breathed my last. Now that I've been reborn, I never want to repeat the mistakes of my past life. But my sister pushed me in front of the tycoon's wife, saying, "Little sister, the life of wealth and luxury in the tycoon's family is all yours now. Don't thank me too much." The tycoon's wife held my hand and said with a smile, Ran, come home with mom." I turned my head to look at my sister. My sister also smiled with squinted eyes and waved at me. "Goodbye, little sister." I couldn't help but laugh too. "Sister, since you're so determined to steal the life I had in my previous existence, then, don't you dare regret it." 2. I still followed the billionaire's wife home, not only because I'm still a child now. If I refused adoption by the billionaire's family, the orphanage director wouldn't get benefits and might retaliate against me, but also because I'm quite covetous of the billionaire's wealth. As soon as we entered the villa, the billionaire's wife immediately called the butler. "Quick, bring the young master down." The butler nodded in agreement and promptly took someone upstairs. In no time, an enraged voice came from upstairs, "Get out, and tell that woman to get out too." I looked up at the billionaire's wife. The billionaire's wife's gaze was fixed on the upstairs. From this angle, I could see the cold glint and triumph in her eyes. Suddenly, she lowered her eyes to look at me, her gaze sharp. "What are you looking at?" Scared, I tried my best to act like a child, timidly hiding behind her. "Mommy, is that Big Brother? He looks so scary." The billionaire's wife firmly grasped my small hand and led me upstairs. The furious voice grew louder and clearer, yet the billionaire's wife smiled gently and brought me to that room. "Qing Yan, why are you throwing such a big tantrum again? Look quickly, guess who I brought for you?" As she spoke, she pushed me toward Li Qing Yan. "This is your little sister. See, isn't she pretty and adorable? From now on you'll have a sister to keep you company." A flying vase interrupted the billionaire's wife mid-sentence. "Mom, watch out." I used the opportunity of pushing the billionaire's wife aside to dodge the vase myself. Li Qingyan's voice grew increasingly furious, his eyes burning with deep hatred. "Get out, all of you, leave first." The billionaire's wife waved her hand, dismissing the butler and servants. She held my shoulders with both hands, bent down, and said to me, Ran, from now on you must take good care of your brother. Whatever he says, you must obey. The reason I brought you back is for you to play with your brother and keep him happy. Remember, your brother is everything to you. If he's well, you're well. If anything happens to him, you must be buried with him. Do you understand? I pouted my lips, forcing out a tear. Mommy, I'm scared." The billionaire's wife's gaze suddenly turned sharp and icy. "Afraid of what? Go play with your brother." She released me and stood up straight, smiling kindly and gently at the furiously Qingyan. "Qingyan, you play with your sister. Auntie won't disturb you too." With that, she left, carefully closing the door behind her. I watched the billionaire's wife leave, wiped the tears from my cheeks, and turned back to face Li Qingyan without a trace of fear left. Li Qingyan's icy gaze bore down on me, his thin lips parting slightly as he coldly spat out a single word: "Get out." I stepped forward. "I won't." Li Qingyan narrowed his eyes dangerously. "You're just a dog that woman sent to spy on me. Aren't you afraid I'll kill you?" I raised an eyebrow. "Kill me, and you'll never stand up again in this lifetime." Fury returned to Li Qingyan's flawless face. "You're looking for death." I glanced back at the door again to ensure the billionaire's wife wasn't eavesdropping, then lowered my voice to a volume only Li Qingyan could hear. "I can cure your legs." Li Qingyan laughed in extreme anger, scanning me up and down. "You, an 8-year-old girl?" "Yes, me." I took another step forward, closing the distance between us. "Besides, right now I'm the only one you can trust." Li Qingyan finally noticed something was off about me. "Who exactly are you?" I shrugged. "Just an 8-year-old little girl." Li Qingyan scoffed lightly. "That woman is truly formidable. She can find anyone. It seems I can't underestimate you. It's not that woman who's formidable, it's me." I extended my hand. "I'll heal your legs. Once you regain control of the Li family, you can deal with that woman however you wish, but don't forget to repay me. My medical skills don't come for free." Li Qingyan, at that moment, his face finally showed the confusion and bewilderment befitting a 15-year-old boy. "You? Just who exactly are you?" I moved closer, leaning into Li Qingyan's ear, and whispered, "An 8-year-old little girl." Li Qingyan, 3. In the following days, I began living a double life of outward compliance and secret defiance, while pretending to be afraid of Li Qingyan in front of the tycoon's wife, acting reluctant to accompany him. I was threatened by her several times, while secretly examining Li Qingyan's condition and formulating a treatment plan. This treatment method was developed by the Shen family in my previous life, but that was 10 years later. But now, I'm the only one who knows this treatment method, an 8-year-old girl. However, Li Qingyan still doesn't believe me. "You're acting all mysterious every day. If I find out you're lying to me, I'll make sure you die without a burial place." I crouched beside Li Qingyan's legs and couldn't help rolling my eyes at his words. "If you're so capable, how come you've been suppressed by your stepmother all this time? Wouldn't it be better to just make her disappear without a trace?" Li Qingyan choked on his words. "You." I soothingly patted his leg. "Brother, just relax. I always keep my promises, and I'm still waiting for you to repay me." Li Qingyan looked at me with a mixture of doubt and hope. "So when exactly will I be able to stand up again?" "Shoo." I pressed a finger to my lips. "If your stepmother hears this, you'll be dead and buried." The wife of the richest man was undoubtedly a formidable figure. After quietly eliminating the tycoon, she used the same methods to cripple Li Qingyan's legs. And now, although most of the shares in the Li Group are in Li Qingyan's hands, he hasn't come of age yet. Several scheming shareholders of the Li Group openly support the tycoon's widow, causing Li Qingyan's status as a cripple within the corporation to decline day by day. So the treatment still needs to be carried out secretly. Otherwise, if the richest man's wife finds out, I might really have to be buried alive with Li Qingyan. "Brother, let's go abroad. It's perfect since both you and I need to attend school. Being overseas, away from your stepmother's watchful eyes, will make it easier for me to handle things." Li Qingyan wore an expression of sudden realization. "So this is where you were leading me. Did that woman put you up to this? Trying to ship me abroad so she can finish me off directly? Why would she kill you? You're already crippled. Even if the shares are still in your hands, you're no threat to her anymore. She just wants me to keep an eye on you and torment you a little more." Li Qingyan silently looked at me, pondered for a moment, then nodded. "All right." 4. Li Qingyan proposed to the tycoon's wife that he wanted to go abroad. The tycoon's wife was surprised. "Qingyan, why do you suddenly want to go abroad?" Li Qingyan said impatiently. "I'm just informing you. Did you really think I was asking for your permission?" The billionaire's wife smiled gently. "Of course I'll support whatever you do. Go ahead then. I'll arrange for someone to find you a school and handle the paperwork." I secretly rejoiced on the side. This was obviously an act put on for the billionaire's wife. With just a glance from her, Ran, you should accompany your brother. I'll help you find a school too." I immediately made an extremely reluctant expression, almost crying. But, the cold, stern voice of the tycoon's wife interrupted me. No buts. Don't forget your place. Li Qingyan patted my head with his paw and said maliciously, little sister, come abroad with your brother. In this life, you're my dog when alive, and my dead dog when dead. Just wait till I treat him, I'll make sure he suffers. But the thought of going abroad soon and being able to study lifted my spirits. At least in this lifetime, I can take control of my own life and live with dignity. As for my sister, she must be very happy now, right? Don't worry, her so-called adoptive brother won't be able to hide his true colors for much longer. Suddenly, a demonic voice emerged in my mind without warning. Ran, who is that boy? Do you like him? Ran, you're so disobedient. Ran, do you like this chain? What about this cage? Brother really loves seeing you chained in the cage, that way. You belong to me alone. Ran, you're mine, not just in this life, but in all your future lives too. For eternity, you can only belong to me. Ran. Ah, I covered my ears and screamed. The richest man's wife said sharply, Li Ran, are you crazy? Your brother just touched your head. Why are you screaming? I suddenly came to my senses and turned my head to meet Li Qingyan's probing gaze. Everything has changed in this lifetime. I let out a slight sigh of relief and shook my head. I'm sorry, I won't dare to do it again. It seems I still haven't completely erased the shadows from my past life from my heart, but fortunately, I'm about to go abroad, far away from here. 10 years later, my sister saw me in the university dormitory, utterly surprised. She ran, why are you also studying medicine? Didn't you go abroad? I smiled and reminded her, sister, my name is Li Ran now. This remark seemed to remind my sister of something. She scanned me up and down and suddenly burst out laughing. How about it? These years abroad haven't been easy, have they? It's not like back home. Even if you wanted to call the police, they wouldn't stand up for you. I pretended not to understand. Sister, what are you talking about? My sister gave a knowing smile. All right, I get it. Just swallow your pride and bear it. I'm actually surprised that mad dog Li Qingyan has let you live this long, after all. You don't have the wits like I do to survive under his thumb. I continued pretending not to understand. Sister, why are you talking about my brother? The sister sneered contemptuously. You can't fool me. She ran. Oh no, I mean Li Ran. I just looked at her puzzledly without saying anything more, then went to organize my own luggage. At the dormitory entrance, the sound of heavy footsteps grew gradually closer. This voice seems etched into my genes, branded onto my very soul. Even after 10 years have passed, hearing this familiar voice again still makes my body stiffen involuntarily. The person has already walked in. I silently take a deep breath, stand up, and turn to face the man who entered, my adoptive brother from my past life, Xin Yuxiu. But Xin Yuxiu didn't even glance at me. His first look upon entering immediately locked onto my sister. My sister stood there stiff as concrete, her gaze frozen on Xin Yuxiu as if she couldn't tear her eyes away. Xin Yuxiu walked to my sister as if no one else existed, his pale hand gently caressing her cheek. When he spoke, his cool voice carried that distinctive tone of his, like shackles meant to imprison one's soul. Cece, why aren't you listening to your brother again? Didn't I tell you not to stay in the dorm? Come, let's go home with me. His voice was soft, yet carried an undeniable authority. My sister's body began to tremble, her voice quivering. I want to stay in the dorm, brother, please, just let me make this decision for myself this once. Xin Yuxiu smiled, so gently it seemed, his gaze at my sister like ice and fire colliding. That look, I knew it all too well. In my past life, Xin Yuxiu used this exact gaze to shackle me. Be good, Cece. My sister swallowed hard, her choked sobs growing quieter as she pleaded, brother, please. I beg you, I promise, I'll come home every Friday. The air around Xin Yuxiu instantly turned icy. Is there a boy at school that you like? My sister shook her head vigorously. No, brother, believe me, there isn't any boy I like. Xin Yuxiu seemed to notice me only then, as he slowly turned his head to look at me. The emotions in his eyes had already receded, leaving behind only an unreadable calm, but when he clearly saw my face, a fleeting look of surprise still flashed across his expression. He pulled his sister into his embrace, the corners of his lips curling into an almost imperceptible smile. Li Ran, so you're Cece's little sister, right? 6 golden metal bars seemed to materialize before my eyes, the cage Xin Yuxiu used to imprison me. My throat grew tighter, making even breathing difficult. Kneeling at his feet in the most wretched posture, with the most pitiful and helpless expression, I begged him through tears. Brother, please let me go, I'm begging you, please. I even kowtowed to him. Shin Yusho crouched before me, his cold fingers slowly tilting my chin up. No, Ran, if I let you go and you run away, where would I find you? Ran, you know I can't live without you. These were things from my past life. That's right, they were things from my past life. I silently let out a sigh of relief and nodded with a smile. I'm Liran. Shin Yusho smiled knowingly. No wonder. No wonder our Cece insisted on living on campus, so she knew her younger sister had returned from abroad and wanted to reunite with her. He then turned to face my sister. Ran, I'll let you stay in the dormitory for a few days to experience it. I'll come pick you up in a few days. My sister's tense expression softened slightly as she nodded. Okay, thank you, brother. Shin Yusho gently patted his sister's head. No need to say thank you to your brother. He lowered his head, placed a light kiss on his sister's forehead, stroked her cheek, then gave me a gentlemanly nod before leaving. My sister's legs gave way, and she collapsed onto the edge of the bed. I walked over, taking in my sister's pale face. Sister, what's wrong? Why are you so afraid of your brother? Has he treated you badly? My sister looked up at me like a robot recharged after running out of power, and suddenly burst into laughter. Liran, actually you didn't have it easy in your past life either. Did you? Shin Yusho is a freak, a devil. How could he possibly let you off? It's all fake, everything is fake. I was deceived by the facade you created. In your past life, you were also born into a living hell. The more she spoke, the more she laughed. I feel much more balanced now. Really, a chill ran through my heart. The reason she felt balanced was because she knew I had suffered greatly under Shin Yusho's torment in my past life. Knew the Shin family had told Shin Yusho, as long as you become a medical genius, we'll give you whatever you want. This little sister is just a toy for you to play with as you please. Knew I had been trapped in that cage for over half a year, living worse than a dog, so my sister could accept her own misfortune after all, the only condition being that I was equally miserable. 7. Beside my ear, my sister's voice continued, but soon such days will come to an end. Once I become a medical genius, everyone in the Shin family will have to obey me. And then it'll be my turn to torment them. A mischievous impulse rose within me, and I interrupted her sweet dream. Sister, what are you talking about? Why do I feel like you're not quite yourself this time we meet? My sister snapped out of her reverie and looked at me with a cold smile. It's not a dream. In the near future, what I said will definitely come true. Suddenly remembering something, she stared at me and asked, why are you studying medicine too? You, don't tell me you're also, have I been reborn too? Actually, telling her wouldn't matter. Everything changed completely from the moment my sister chose the Shin family in this lifetime. No matter how much she schemes, it's useless. But I won't tell her I've been reborn. Let her believe she's the only one holding the script from her past life, waiting for her comeback. The greater the hope, the greater the disappointment. I want to see the look of despair on my sister's face, as revenge for her killing me in my past life. In my past life, my sister ended my life, and that's how I was able to escape. But I won't be grateful to her for that. I hate my sister, and I hate Shin Yusho even more, but in this lifetime, I only want to live my own life well, to exist like a normal person. I pretended not to understand and even called my sister crazy. My sister didn't care, no matter what. In this lifetime Shin Yusho loves me. In my past life I was killed by him, so why shouldn't I turn him into my murder weapon this time? Liran, whether you know something or not, behave yourself, or I'll have Shin Yusho kill you. He may be a pervert, but he's deeply in love with me. He'll definitely listen to me. I wanted to tell my sister that Shin Yusho is a devil, but isn't she one too? But I just shook my head helplessly. Sis, you're really seriously ill. 8. Every night, my sister calls Shin Yusho to report in. My phone also chimed with a notification at that moment. It was a WeChat message from Li Qingyan. Brother, disappeared just by going to college. Don't you know how to call your brother? Though it was just text, I could still detect a tone of tsundere arrogance in it. You're in the apartment near the university. If you're worried, just come see for yourself. What's the point of calling? To say, brother, I'm fine, don't worry, brother. Do I need to worry about an 18-year-old adult? You're going to college, not Myanmar. Now it's an 18-year-old adult, not an 8-year-old little girl. Another message from Li Qingyan came through. Brother, I'll pick you up on Friday. That woman wants us to go back for a meal. The act must go on. Got it, brother. Good night. It's only past 7. What good night? During military training, the playground was bustling with activity, with many showcasing their talents, but I was really too tired. so I went back to the dorm to rest. The reason my sister came back so early is that she had to report to Shinyushio and didn't want to be overheard. I heard it, brother. I really don't have a boy I like. The only reason I want to stay at school is to be with my younger sister. I like you, brother. I only like you, in my past life. Shinyushio always forced me to say this phrase. His family only treated him as a tool for fame and reputation, never giving him even a shred of genuine affection. This is how someone starved of love to the extreme behaves. But this cannot be an excuse for him to torment others. If he's truly miserable from lack of love, then he should just die. I pushed the door open and went in. My sister was startled at first, but upon recognizing me, she immediately pulled me over. Brother, look. My sister has also returned to the dormitory. She has many things she wants to talk to me about too. Shinyushio just glanced at me through the screen before saying goodbye to my sister. As the video call ended, a look of disgust finally surfaced on my sister's face. When she turned and noticed me watching her, she immediately glared fiercely. What are you looking at? I'm warning you. Behave yourself. Don't say anything you shouldn't. If you dare scheme anything, you'll be the one getting hurt in the end. In this lifetime, it's me whom Shinyushio loves. I mocked with a laugh. Sister, you're always talking about past lives and this life. If you say these things just to me, fine, but if others hear you, they'll surely think you've gone mad. Also, I noticed you seem to really dislike your brother, yet you keep saying he only loves you. Could it be that you're suffering from Stockholm Syndrome? I'm not. My sister lowered her voice and muttered. I just really dislike him. She then asked me, don't you dislike Li Qingyan? You mean my brother? I shook my head and continued, no, I don't dislike him at all. My brother treats me extremely well. The elder sister sneered. Stop pretending here. Would that crippled bastard treat you well? Shinyushio is a pervert. But is that lame wretch any better? I should have refused to be adopted by them from the start. Who says it isn't so? In her previous life, she was clearly killed by Shinyushio, yet after rebirth, she chose the Shin family without hesitation. If she had refused adoption, she could have lived a good life in this lifetime by utilizing the cheat from her past life. I feel the same way, yet we both still walk the same old path from our past lives, even though we exchanged each other's paths. But I'm confident that my path in this life will become faster and smoother as I walk it. 9. Friday, after finishing military training, I returned to the dormitory to change clothes, preparing to go find Li Qingyan. My sister had also changed her clothes, and the two of us left the dormitory building together. Not far away, two luxury cars were parked side by side. The Bentley belonged to Shinyushio, while the Aston Martin was Li Qingyan's. Upon seeing my sister, Shinyushio got out of his car and walked gracefully towards us, directly taking her hand while giving me a friendly smile. How have you two sisters been this week? I was just about to speak when Li Qingyan's driver got out of the car. He took out a folding wheelchair, opened it, and then helped Li Qingyan get down and sit in the wheelchair. My sister looked over and instinctively held on to Shinyushio's arm. Just as I have a shadow over Shinyushio, my sister also has a shadow over Li Qingyan. Shinyushio was flattered, looking down at my sister's hand tightly clutching his arm, the corner of his lips curling up silently. What's wrong, Cece? My sister snapped back to reality and gave Shinyushio a sweet smile. Nothing, I just missed you, brother. Shinyushio's eyes were tender as water, lowering his head to place a kiss on his sister's forehead. I missed you too. Li Qingyan had already arrived. He also recognized his sister at first glance, although our living environments have differed greatly over the years, and our appearances are no longer as similar as before. It's still obvious at first glance that we're twins. Ran. Is this your sister? Li Chenjian gave her a faint smile. Why didn't you tell me earlier? Then he extended his hand toward the sister. The sister hesitated, shook hands with Li Chenjian, and said, don't blame my younger sister. Please don't hit her. This wasn't her speaking up for me at all. It was pure schadenfreude. A flash of surprise crossed Li Chenjian's expression as he glared at me. Li Ran. Is this how you tarnish my reputation outside? When have I ever hit you? That wasn't me saying it. It was sister's assumption. Besides, have you forgotten, when we first met, you immediately threw a vase at me. Li Qingyan's eyelid twitched slightly. Shut up. I immediately closed my mouth. Older sister burst out laughing. It was clear she was genuinely happy to see me doing poorly. Casting a sympathetic yet satisfied glance at me, my sister tightened her grip on Shinyushio's arm. Brother, let's go home. Shinyushio responded indifferently, withdrawing his icy gaze from Li Qingyan's hand. Let's go. Then he took my sister into the car. Suddenly, I got goosebumps. This feeling is all too familiar. Shin Yushio's possessiveness is acting up again. Because, sister shook hands with another man. Sister is going to have a tough night tonight. 10. Since returning to the country, I haven't met the tycoon's wife until now. Seeing her again, she seems unchanged. Well-maintained and still as young and beautiful as ever. However, all these years, I've maintained contact with her because I needed to provide her with everything about Li Qingyan. The richest man's wife was quite satisfied with my performance. Li Qingyan is already 25 this year. After coming of age, he should have taken back the company, but it's still the richest man's wife who calls the shots. The richest man's wife got carried away too. At the dinner table, she actually said directly to Li Qingyan, "Qingyan, you've been abroad all these years and haven't inquired much about the company's affairs. I, on the other hand, have managed the company very well. It's just that I'm not the largest shareholder after all, which makes decision-making quite inconvenient." She paused briefly before continuing, "Qingyan, transfer your shares to my name. If you're uneasy, I'll buy them from you. We're family. After your father passed, I've treated you like my own son. Don't you trust me?" Li Qingyan set down his chopsticks, his tone measured, striking just the right chord in everyone's hearts. The billionaire's wife stared unblinkingly at Li Qingyan, her smile still perfectly poised. Li Qingyan slowly raised his gaze to meet hers, lips curving slightly. "Since it's inconvenient for you, I'll officially take over the company starting tomorrow. No need to trouble you anymore, Auntie." The billionaire's wife didn't take Li Qingyan's words to heart. "Qingyan, there are some things Auntie fears might hurt your pride if said, but they must be spoken." Her gaze fell on Li Qingyan's legs. "Your legs? The company still has some reservations about them. Having outsiders see the Li Group led by someone with a disability would significantly damage the corporation's prestige." Li Qingyan nodded, appearing to agree with the billionaire's wife's words. The billionaire's wife smiled contentedly. "Then, name your price." "You set the price." Li Qingyan placed both hands on the wheelchair armrests. "I'll buy your shares." The billionaire's wife smiled and said, "You still don't understand what I mean." "I understand." Li Qingyan slowly stood up and walked step by step toward her under the billionaire's wife's shocked gaze. "Now, may I take over the company?" The billionaire's wife's eyes widened, her gaze seemingly nailed to Li Qingyan's face. After a long pause, she finally spoke. How are you standing?" Suddenly struck by a thought, the tycoon's wife abruptly stood up. "Li Ran, you've betrayed me." I shrugged innocently. "You've been threatening me all along, even saying you'd make me die for my brother's funeral. Did you really expect me to stay loyal to you?" The tycoon's wife flew into a rage and was about to charge at me when Li Qingyan suddenly grabbed her by the throat. Compared to Li Qingyan's calm composure, the tycoon's wife's face quickly turned as red as a tomato. She struggled violently, all traces of her elegant nobility vanishing completely. "Let me go." As Li Chenjian loosened his grip, the billionaire's wife went limp and collapsed heavily onto the ground. Li Chenjian looked down at her with a cold smile. "Auntie, I know you have much to say, but not now. Save your words for the police." Over the past decade, although Li Qingyan was abroad, he wasn't idle, receiving my treatment while gathering evidence of the billionaire's wife's crimes. A decade is enough time to accomplish anything. Li Qingyan has already handed over all the evidence to the police, proving the billionaire's wife murdered her husband and crippled Li Qingyan's legs. Soon after, the billionaire's wife was taken into custody. Li Qingyan officially took over the Li Group. As for those who sided with the billionaire's wife, they're now struggling to protect themselves and can't cause any trouble. I stayed by Li Qingyan's side the entire weekend until he assumed the chairman's position. I reached out my hand to him. "You promised me. Can you give it to me now?" Li Qingyan slightly furrowed his ink-dark brows and tapped my palm with his large hand. "What are you in such a hurry for?" I pouted and withdrew my hand. Li Qingyan shook his head with a smile. "Don't worry, you won't miss out. I'll first set up a laboratory for you. Once you graduate from university, you can establish your own medical team. When has your brother ever broken a promise to you?" I giggled and wrapped my arms around Li Qingyan's neck from behind. "Brother, you're so good." Li Qingyan patted my arm. "You're 18 now. Not an 8-year-old girl anymore. Be more careful. He's quite the gentleman." 11. On Monday when I returned to school, as expected, I didn't see my sister. She didn't participate in military training, and surprisingly, the instructor didn't say anything about it. It was clear that Shin Yushio had already made arrangements with the school. It wasn't until half a month later, long after we had finished our military training, that my sister finally returned. This time when I saw her, It was obvious she seemed like someone whose soul had been taken over. Leaving behind only a walking corpse, I noticed she was wearing high-necked clothes. Even without looking underneath, I knew there must be marks from being tied around her neck. I gently patted her. My sister immediately jumped up as if electrocuted, like a startled bird. "No, what are you doing, sister? What's wrong with you?" My sister kept shaking her head. "I'm fine," she suddenly shouted. "None of your business." I shrugged. "I can't be bothered with you either." My sister grabbed my arm abruptly, her pitch-black eyes staring at me intensely as if trying to suck me in. "Little sister, let's switch back." She shook her head. "No, I'm not feeling well. Could you accompany me to the hospital tomorrow?" I was about to refuse when a fleeting image flashed through my mind, and some terrifying memory surged forth with my current intuition. I lowered my gaze, letting it rest on my sister's belly. Could it be what I'm thinking? The hospital my sister mentioned must be the Shin family's private hospital. In my past life, when I was 18 years old, Shin Yushio took me there. He personally performed the surgery, removed my uterus, then smiled with satisfaction and whispered in my ear, Ran, now you won't get pregnant, without children. From now on, you'll belong to your brother alone. Is Shin Yushio going to remove my sister's uterus too? Does sister want me to go instead of her? I clenched my fists tightly, but still couldn't hold back, raising my hand to slap my sister hard across the face, as if she couldn't feel the pain. My sister grabbed my arm tightly again. "Little sister, you must come with me, you have to go, you must go." I pushed her away violently and said in the most vicious tone, "Shushi, go to hell." I ran out of the dormitory and called Li Qingyan. Soon my sister came out too, chasing after me like a vengeful ghost. "Little sister, don't run, come back." I kept running toward the school gate until I crashed headlong into Li Qingyan's arms. "Catch her," my sister shrieked, seeing me stop. She laughed excitedly and charged at me. "Little sister, aren't you my good sister? Since you're my sister, you should sacrifice yourself for me." Li Qingyan pushed his sister away as she leaned in. His sister's expression turned fierce, about to lunge at him, but when she clearly saw Li Qingyan's face, she froze in shock. After a long while, she finally snapped out of it, shaking her head frantically. "Your legs, how are you standing? Why is this happening? You too, Li Qingyan, let her go. Why are you protecting her? Wouldn't it be better if she died? Shouldn't you hate her? What, you still don't know, do you? She's your stepmother's pawn, she's been spying on you for her, and she even wants you dead." Li Qingyan shielded me tightly behind him. At that moment, Shin Yushio arrived. 12. When my sister saw Shin Yushio, she completely broke down. She immediately knelt at Shin Yushio's feet. "Brother, please spare me, don't alter my brain, I'll die." She suddenly pointed at me again. "Shu Ran is your sister, she should be your sister, not me, not me. You love Shu Ran, take her back." She desperately kowtowed to Shin Yushio until blood seeped from her forehead. Spare me, spare me." Shin Yushio gently helped my sister up and smiled at me and Li Qingyan. Ran, your sister has been very emotionally unstable lately, I'll take her home first." No matter how hard she struggled, my sister couldn't break free from Shin Yushio's grip. She was dragged into the car by him. I know that once sister is taken back by Shin Yushio this time, she will completely lose her freedom. Just as I was about to keep watching, I was already pulled into the car by Li Qingyan. After returning home, he finally asked me, "What exactly is going on? What happened between your sister and Shin Yushio? Why did your sister say you're actually Shin Yushio's sister?" I told Li Qingyan everything about my past life and admitted that I was reborn. Li Qingyan quickly accepted it, because he had always doubted how an 8-year-old like me could possess such exceptional medical skills. Now everything makes sense. "So, in our past lives, you were by Shin Yushio's side, while my companion was your sister." I nodded. Li Qingyan came over and hugged me. "In our past life, did you become just like your sister too?" I cried in Li Qingyan's arms, pouring out all my vulnerability, grievances, and resentment. "Shin Yushio is a monster. He forcibly removed my uterus when I was 18 because he didn't want me to have children. He refused to share me with anyone, kept me caged, and chained me." Ran. Li Qingyan murmured my name while holding me tightly. "That was all in the past life. Now it's me who's by your side." He released me, cupped my face, and said, Ran, look at me, it's me. I'll protect you, I won't let anyone hurt you." Tears blurred my vision, but I could still clearly see Li Qingyan's face. All the negative emotions in my heart gradually dissipated. I took a deep breath. "I'll protect myself too." "Good." Li Qingyan held me tighter again. Big brother will give you whatever you want. As long as you can become strong enough to protect yourself, I'll do anything you ask. 13. With irrefutable evidence, even with the best lawyers, the billionaire's wife couldn't overturn the case. What awaited her was the death penalty, but it was clear that Li Chenjian no longer cared about the billionaire's wife now. He told me, Ran, I will avenge you. I understand what he meant. He would take action against Shin Yuxiu. I held his hand. Brother, don't act impulsively. Let's first see if Shin Yuxiu makes any moves. After being reborn, I never intended to seek revenge. I just want to live my life well, to become strong enough to protect myself from anyone's harm. Li Qingyan didn't bring up revenge again, but then I received a call from Shin Yuxiu. He asked to meet me. Naturally, I refused, but then my sister's heart-wrenching screams came through the phone. Ran, did you hear that? Shin Yuxiu's gloomy, eerie voice carried a hint of amusement. That's your sister. She killed you in your past life, and now in this life, she's fallen into your brother's hands. I'll avenge you. My hand loosened, and my phone almost fell. All the hairs on my body stood on end. Shin Yuxiu, you. Shin Yuxiu's laughter came through the phone, creeping into my ears like a chilling wind blowing up from hell. Little sister, I've been reborn too. After killing your sister, I was imprisoned for 10 years. The moment I got out, I came straight to find you. I told you before, even if we have to go to hell, I'll be with you. I abruptly hung up the phone. That demon has returned. He's come for me, but this time, I can't just sit back and do nothing. 14. I went to see Shin Yuxiu. He had my sister tied up in a villa in the suburbs, locked in a cage with chains. When my sister saw me, she broke down in tears, screaming with all her might, "Save me, little sister, save me." Shin Yuxiu walked over and pulled me into his embrace, his voice brimming with longing. Ran, you came after all. I knew you wouldn't abandon your brother. Ran, I've missed you so much. For 10 years, I've thought of you every day, but I had to leave to find you. Did you miss me? I shoved him away violently, glaring at him with pure hatred. Shin Yuxiu, I hate you. Shin Yuxiu wasn't angered. Instead, he smiled. It was a twisted smile, one filled with excitement, bloodlust, and cruelty. Ran, you do love me, you just don't realize it yourself. I took a deep breath. Shin Yuxiu, do you love me? I love you. Ran, of course I love you. Shin Yuxiu came over and hugged me again. Ran, I love you. I love you. I leaned close to his ear and said word by word, then how about you go die? Shin Yuxiu's body stiffened. The next moment, police officers rushed in. Hands up. Shin Yuxiu merely glanced at the police before his gaze returned to my face. He laughed again, but this time it carried a hint of desolation. Ran, I love you. He looked into my eyes while stepping back, repeating those 3 words, I love you, until he retreated into the cage, helped his sister up, and unfastened the collar around her neck. Just when everyone thought he was going to let his sister go, a knife suddenly appeared in his hand, its sharp blade sliding across her neck. They also left the choice to his sisters. Jean, sister collapsed to the ground. Shin Yuxiu also fell to the ground. The bullet struck Shin Yuxiu squarely between the eyebrows, leaving a streak of crimson. His eyes remained fixed on me, a smile playing at the corners of his lips. My legs gave way as if all strength had drained from my body, and I collapsed. Ran, Li Qingyan caught me, then roared furiously after confirming I was unharmed. Why didn't you tell me? Who told you to take such risks? Li Ran, are you trying to get yourself killed? I hugged him. Brother, it's all over, everything is over. Li Qingyan was still shaken, but he still held me. It's over. After leaving the villa, I got into Li Qingyan's car. He took me to the police station to give my statement. Stepping out of the police station, it was just noon. The autumn sunlight was exceptionally bright. I rolled down the car window to let the cool autumn breeze in, then looked outside. Li Qingyan steered with one hand while freeing the other to hold mine. Giving it a gentle squeeze, I turned my head to look at him. And we exchanged a knowing smile. The golden sunlight streamed in, illuminating both of our smiling faces. The end. Story 2. I pestered the poor campus heartthrob for 3 years. I was a complete spoiled rich girl. He was always lukewarm towards me, neither saying he liked me nor that he hated me. It wasn't until my family went bankrupt, when I had the nerve to ask him to return the watch I had given him. His seemingly well-behaved sister, who had always encouraged me to pursue love, pushed me away. Don't pester my future boyfriend if you don't have money. Okay. Only then did I know that the sister he had been taking good care of and showing concern for wasn't his biological sister, but his foster sister. The campus heartthrob who had always given me a cold shoulder actually obeyed her every word. He had been playing along with me for a full 3 years because of her. After being reborn, I went back to the day when I forcefully pursued the campus heartthrob. I hugged the arm of the wealthy young master who was engaged to me and walked straight past without even glancing at him. In this life, I don't want to love him anymore. However, the campus heartthrob, who was originally beaten until he was covered in bruises, opened his eyes with great difficulty and tightly grasped my ankle with regret and pain. 1. I stood on the rooftop and took a puff of my cigarette. The major debts of the company had all been transferred to my name in the past 2 months or so. For a full 73 days and 8 hours, I hardly had a full night's sleep. All I could think about when I opened or closed my eyes was how to raise funds. My mother passed away due to a stroke. My father was so devastated that he started drinking heavily. My elder brother was completely down and suffered from severe depression. I took on all the burdens, but no miracle happened. I was really just a spoiled rich girl. When it came to this critical moment, I could only think of one solution. After finishing the cigarette, my hands were a bit shaky. I couldn't help but open the chat window with Pei Guyan. The last message in it was still the good night he sent me by rote 2 months ago. I spent 100,000 yuan to get his WeChat account and 300,000 yuan to have him send me good morning and good night messages every day, but this routine had already ended because I couldn't help but slap his sister, Ji Qing. 2 months ago, I stared at the chat window, typed, and sent, Pei Guyan. I lit another cigarette and told myself that after finishing this cigarette, I really shouldn't hesitate anymore. The first minute, Pei Guyan didn't reply. While waiting, I boredly flipped through my contact list. They were all fair-weather friends. They all avoided me like the plague after they learned that my family had gone bankrupt. The few true friends I had gradually drifted away from me in the past few years when I was desperately chasing Pei Guyan. I had no one to talk to anymore. The second minute, I didn't indulge Pei Guyan. I called him over and over again, using the most disgusting ways I could think of. Pei Guyan, baby Pei, sweetheart Pei. Handsome guy who looks like a big sweet potato with a butt so tilted that it can hold up the pyramid. After being a spoiled rich girl for 23 years, the only thing I was good at was flirting with others. The third minute, Pei Guyan finally couldn't stand it anymore and sent, Shin Yuzhu, stop being crazy. Okay, I smiled and took a fierce puff of the cigarette. What's wrong? We've tried all kinds of positions in bed. Are you being a hypocrite, Mr. Campus Heartthrob? Are you afraid that your girlfriend will check up on you? Pei Guyan was silent for a few seconds, and the message he sent was cold and heartless. Shin Yuzhu, Xiaoqing is my sister. You still haven't changed your habit of slandering others randomly with your young lady's temper. It's really disgusting. Sister, 2 months ago, when I was so poor that I had no choice but to go to Pei Guyan and ask for the watch I had given him back, Ji Qing blocked me and pushed me down. At that time, she didn't say that, she said, Shin Yuzhu, you stupid rich second generation. Did you really think that my brother and I were from a reorganized family? We grew up together and like each other. You're just the first pot of gold on my brother's road to success. How many times in the past, when I couldn't figure out Pei Guyan's thoughts and was so tired that I wanted to give up, it was Ji Qing who pretended to be well-behaved and encouraged me. Sister Yuzhu, my brother is just cold on the outside but warm on the inside. Just chase him boldly and be more generous. He will definitely fall for someone like you. But after I lost my money, she suddenly changed her attitude. It turned out that all of this was just their couple's role-playing. I was stupid, and I admit it. Money is the best shelter in the world. I was too rich before, and my parents and elder brother loved me too much. So I didn't strive for progress. I deserved to be deceived. It's just, the cigarette was almost finished. I didn't have the time to argue with Pei Guyan about his lies. Holding on to the last bit of hope, I asked, Hey, Pei Guyan, can you return that Rolex Submariner I gave you? He disliked that watch the most and never wore it. He said it made him look like an uneducated upstart. Pei Guyan hesitated. What trick are you playing now? Do you still want to deceive me into meeting you? Shin Yuzhu, ever since you bullied my sister, I don't want to see you again, I said. It's okay if we don't meet. You can send it to me through someone else. Pei Guyan didn't say anything for a long time, and there was only a short cigarette but left of my cigarette. I didn't have time anymore. I comforted myself that even if I got the watch back, it would just be a drop in the bucket. It didn't matter anymore. Pei Guyan, okay, tell me an address, and I'll send it to you by express delivery. I sighed. Forget it then, it's too late. Pei Gaian, Shinjuju, what on earth do you mean? I took the last puff of the cigarette forcefully, the cigarette but was burned so short that it almost burned my lips. I never thought that one day I would use this stingy way of smoking. I stood up and made my last request to Pei Gaian. Hey, Pei Gaian, say goodnight to me one more time, Pei Gaian said. Why should I? I stared at those 3 words and unexpectedly found that my heart still ached. Sigh, loving him was really a painful thing. Fortunately, I wouldn't have to suffer from this pain anymore. I didn't reply. I stuffed my phone into my pocket and took a deep breath. Then, without hesitation, I jumped off the tall building. I knew that 5 minutes later, my father and elder brother would receive a timed text message. Daughter sister is incompetent and can't revive the company. But don't worry, when a person dies, the debts are cleared, you can live well from now on. By the way, the little niece is so cute. Teach her to study hard and make a name for herself, don't be like me. I closed my eyes. In the next life, I don't want to be a spoiled rich girl anymore. I don't want to hit anyone's wall of resistance anymore, not even until my head bleeds. 2. After a severe bout of dizziness, I tried my best to open my heavy eyelids. Then, I was stunned. The surroundings were neither the white walls of a hospital ward nor the burly men from a debt collection company. There was only a bustling entertainment club filled with feasting and revelry, a world of luxury and debauchery. I slowly lowered my head and saw the out-of-season Chanel haute couture dress I was wearing, which was from 3 years ago, and I was filled with confusion. You're going a bit too far. I know you don't want to come to this blind date, but at least pretend a bit. Why are you even starting to play with your fingers while looking down? Is what I'm saying that boring? A man's somewhat lazy voice came from in front of me. I looked up. It turned out to be Su Mingluan, the eldest son of the Su family. 3 years ago, we went on a blind date. I was stunned. I had actually been reborn back to 3 years ago. Suddenly, there was a commotion outside the window. There were people scolding. And the sounds of punching and kicking. I remembered everything. In my previous life, I heard this commotion. Relying on my status as the young lady of the Shin family, I went to see what was happening. After that, I fell in love at first sight with Pei Gaian, who was being beaten up. I spent money to settle the matter with the guests who were beating him up. Unfortunately, my subordinates were too considerate and provided a one-stop service. Not only did they treat Pei Gaian's injuries, but they also cleaned him up, got him drunk, and sent him to my bed. Unaware of the truth, I thought that Pei Gaian had offered himself to me out of gratitude, so I readily accepted without hesitation. Only later did I find out that he deeply resented me because he thought I had forced myself on him. In this life, I don't want to get involved in this ill-fated relationship again. Miss Shen, what a big commotion. Do you want to go and take a look? Su Mingluan leaned forward with great interest. I lowered my head to eat. No, let's just chat. Su Mingluan stared at me in surprise. Well, I'm truly honored, but for some reason, the commotion this time was even louder. Pei Gaian, dressed in a waiter's uniform, pushed the security guards aside and rushed into the VIP area as if he was running for his life. His nose was broken, and he was covered in blood. He seemed to be stunned and hit the corner of our table, making the glass cup hum. Damn it. You little bastard, you still dare to run, you broke my watch. And if you don't have the money to pay for it, you'll have to pay with your poor life. A drunken guest cursed as he walked in and was surrounded by the security guards. The scene was chaotic, but after Pei Gaian, who was fleeing for his life, leaned against the table under me, he remained motionless as if he had found a shelter. The injured him curled up at the corner of my table, and his gasps made his chest rise and fall. He was flustered and kept wiping the blood with his hands. Trying his best to make his face a bit cleaner, Su Mingluan stood up. He glanced at me and, very dramatically, spread his hands towards Pei Gaian and gave me a gentlemanly bow. It's up to you. I was speechless. 3 years ago, I was indeed a well-known kind-hearted person in the circle, especially fond of rescuing handsome guys. Someone had made sarcastic remarks that I was a modern version of Shui Pan, the female character. At that time, I hadn't even read Dream of the Red Chamber and didn't know that I was being compared to the foolish Shui Pan. I gently shook my head at Su Mingluan, stood up, and held his arm tightly. Let's go. It's too noisy here. Su Mingluan looked at me in surprise. I didn't notice that Pei Gaian, who was curled up at the corner of my table, also froze in disbelief. I didn't even look at him. I pulled Su Mingluan and bypassed Pei Gaian. The moment I took my first step, someone suddenly grabbed my ankle tightly. Pei Gaian supported himself with one hand on the ground and held my ankle firmly with the other hand. Covered in blood and almost fainting, He still refused to let go. His cold voice was stubborn, yet carried a hint of unspoken regret. "Miss, don't you want to save me?" 3. His voice was deep and still sounded so pleasant. In my previous life, I would have been overjoyed if he had said one more word to me, but now, even hearing a single word from Pagayan made me feel creeped out and in great pain. I stood there stiffly, seeing that I didn't say anything. Pagayan called out softly again. This time, his voice was even more stubborn and pitiful. "Miss," I lifted my foot and tried to break free from him. He didn't expect my reaction. He tried his best to raise his head, picked up the hot towel he used to wipe his hands, and regardless of the pain, wiped his face vigorously. "Wait, look at my face, in my previous life." It was because of this fleeting glance that I fell in love with him at first sight. From then on, I was almost entangled with him for 3 years, as if we were destined to be at odds with each other. I lowered my head, and my eyes lightly landed on Pagayan's face. I calmly moved my eyes away, looking at him as indifferently as I would look at an ordinary tree. There was no surprise like in my previous life. And I didn't exclaim in admiration, "You're so handsome. Do you want to fall in love with me?" Pagayan couldn't believe it. While he was in a daze, Sumingluan grabbed his wrist and forced him to let go because of the pain. "You scared her." Sumingluan frowned and said. Pagayan finally came to his senses and glanced at him. His eyes suddenly turned cold. "Sumingluan," I was a bit surprised. How could Pagayan know Sumingluan now? In my previous life, even after he was entangled with me, he always maintained an indifferent attitude and never showed any interest in my social circle, let alone remembered the blind date partner I casually mentioned. I lowered my head. There was already a mottled blood-stained handprint on my ankle where the black high-heeled shoe strap was tied. Pagayan really grabbed me hard. I frowned. Pagayan looked at me expressionlessly, his eyes dark and hiding some unknown desire. I said softly, "It's so dirty." This sentence was like a punch hitting Pagayan's face. The curve of his mouth froze instantly. He stared at me in a daze. "What did you say?" I didn't want to look at him. I bent down to pick up the towel to wipe it. Sumingluan was very gentlemanly, considering that it was inconvenient for me to bend down in a dress. He squatted down halfway and wiped Pagayan's blood cleanly. I hugged Sumingluan's arm and said in a low voice, "Let's go. In this life, I won't make the same mistake again. I will stay as far away from Pagayan as possible." 4. There was a troublesome guest at the club, and the waiters were in a rush. Many guests also chose to leave. For a while, the doorman in charge of parking the cars was extremely busy. While we were waiting for the car, after asking for my opinion, Sumingluan lit a cigarette. The light of the fire illuminated his cynical eyebrows and eyes. I had looked at this face for more than 10 years. I thought I had seen enough of it and was tired of it. But unexpectedly, after such a long separation, when I started over, I found that he was actually no less good-looking than Pagayan. In my previous life, tonight was the last time we met. After tonight, I met Pagayan. I strongly refused my parents' idea of having me continue with the blind dates. Sumingluan and I gradually drifted apart. In fact, it wasn't just because I fell in love with Pagayan. It was also because I was a bit jealous of Sumingluan at that time. I was jealous of his intelligence. I was jealous that he was the heir apparent as the eldest son, while I was just a rich second generation who was born only to eat, drink, and have fun. I used to think that being an heir was a light and glorious, yet easy honor, but I didn't expect that when the responsibility really fell on my shoulders, it made me dizzy and miserable. Because of this, in this life, I have let go of a lot of my feelings towards Sumingluan. I suddenly said, "Let me ask you something. Do you know what a limited liability company is?" Sumingluan, who was smoking, was suddenly choked. He coughed and asked me in disbelief, "Shinyuju, are you sick? Are you sure you want to ask me about business knowledge instead of limited edition luxury goods?" "Me, tell me or not, it's up to you." Sumingluan smiled and moved my hand aside, looking very casual. "Okay. Since Miss Shin suddenly wants to study, Sue, will definitely accompany you to the end." We were chatting when we were suddenly interrupted. "Shin Yuju, wow, you're Shin Yuju from the School of Business at University A, right? We're from the same school. I'm good friends with your roommate. My name is Ji Qing." When I heard this voice, my eyelids suddenly twitched. When I turned my head, Ji Qing was supporting the injured Pagayan and eagerly stretched out her hand towards me. "This is my brother, Pagayan, the campus heartthrob of University A." Ha ha ha. I smoked indifferently, my face expressionless. Following my gaze, Pagayan saw his arm that was hooked by Ji Qing. He pursed his lips and gently pulled his hand away. Ji Qing's smile froze for a moment. She playfully patted Pei Guyan. Brother, you can't be like this. You forget about your sister when you see a beautiful woman. I remember that in my previous life, she always liked to say things like this. Saying that she wasn't as pretty as me and that she didn't look as much like a lady from a prestigious family as I did. I used to foolishly think that she was speaking well of me in front of Pei Guyan. Later, I realized that she just wanted to hear Pei Guyan's cold and disdainful reply, that I was just average looking and didn't look like a lady from a prestigious family. He thought I was just a superficial rich second generation. But strangely, this time, Pei Guyan didn't speak up to deny it. Everything fell into silence. Ji Qing had to get back to the point. She asked cautiously, "Classmate Yuzhu, you're so rich and beautiful, can you please help my brother? He accidentally broke a guest's watch, and it seems to cost around 100,000 yuan. We poor college students really don't have that kind of money. Can you, for the sake of being classmates, give us a hand?" Pei Guyan looked at me without saying a word. He, who was stubborn and aloof, didn't speak up to stop her. Instead, he stared at my face, falling into a strange trance. "Ji Qing, it doesn't matter if you don't want to lend us the money, then can you please say a few words to the manager and ask him not to fire my brother? We really need this job. Please, just say a word." I looked at them. It was really ridiculous. In my previous life, when Ji Qing and I had a falling out, she repeatedly said that they didn't need my help at all in the first place. It was me who was being persistent and pestering Pei Guyan. So I deserved to be let down. But in this life, why did she come to me on her own initiative when I hadn't even taken action? I looked at her indifferently. "I refuse." Ji Qing's smile disappeared. She was stunned and started to stammer out explanations. "Sister Yuzhu, aren't you the kindest person usually? I heard that you gave someone 10,000 yuan just because your roommate helped you with your homework. And that person who asked you to help their family member find a job. Can you do this small favor?" I smiled and interrupted her unceremoniously, softly uttering 3 words, "Why should I?" Before Ji Qing could react, Pei Guyan beside her changed his expression first. It seemed that the 3 words, "Why should I?" hit his most painful and nightmarish sore spot. He turned pale, looking at me in disbelief, his body trembling slightly. "Stop talking," he said softly, "the car is here," Su Mingluan said at the same time. I stared at Pei Guyan in confusion and then got into Su Mingluan's car without hesitation. Su Mingluan sensed my strangeness. He glanced at me. "Do you know him?" I shook my head. "Not really," Su Mingluan said. "Since we grew up together, let me give you some advice. You and him are not from the same world. Don't mess with him too much." I looked at him. Su Mingluan propped his arm on the car window, and under his cynical expression was a cold and cruel objectivity. I said softly, "Thank you." Su Mingluan shook his head. "I also have my own ulterior motives." His eyes suddenly fixed on me, and he repeated, "Yuzhu, I also have my own ulterior motives." What were his ulterior motives? I said. "Su Mingluan, you want to marry me, don't you?" Su Mingluan smiled. "Our conditions are very suitable, aren't they?" I looked at him quietly. In my previous life, when my family went bankrupt, Su Mingluan was one of the few people who took the initiative to help. However, at that time, the situation was already too difficult to reverse, and it was too late. It seemed that God specifically made me return to this point in time to make up for some regrets. I nodded. "Okay." Su Mingluan was a bit surprised. "Then how about having the engagement banquet in 7 days?" I said. "So soon?" Su Mingluan nodded and smiled. "Yes, I'm in a hurry. I'm afraid you'll be snatched away by some inexplicable person." 5. I told my parents that I had a favorable impression of the person I went on a blind date with, and they were very happy. They enthusiastically started making arrangements for the engagement banquet. My mother let out a sigh of relief and muttered to herself, "Now I can rest assured." I looked at her quietly and suddenly understood the details that I had overlooked in my previous life. Perhaps, the elders had already vaguely anticipated the disaster that would happen 3 years later. Even my mother might have already known that she was ill, so she was so eager to see me get married. She was afraid that after she died, no one would be able to take care of me. But for me, the significance of the arranged marriage was not just that. I didn't have that much confidence in my own abilities. I didn't know if, after studying hard for 3 years, I could instantly become an elite who could turn this situation around. Therefore, I needed a smart partner. A partner who was bound to me by a legal and valid contract. Having been reborn, Pei Guyan was no longer the center of my world. I was concerned about my mother's illness and started supervising her to have regular checkups and pay attention to her diet. I also took the initiative to suggest going to the company for training. My father looked at me with pride, and my mother exclaimed happily, "Baby has really grown up and is now caring about her mother." My brother raised his eyebrows and, pretending to be the head of the family, said seriously, "If you want to get some experience, you can't cry. Internships are very hard, and you have to get up early every day." But less than a minute later, he couldn't keep up the act. "It doesn't matter if you can't get up, brother will get you an empty office. You can decorate it however you like." Okay, I looked at them, and my eyes involuntarily turned red. They really loved me and didn't want me to encounter anything that required me to work hard and persevere in my life. They wanted me to be a carefree princess for the rest of my life. They were willing to bear all the hardships and difficulties for me. However, after going through my previous life, I realized that this was wrong. No one could bear everything for a lifetime. I had to become independent. They protected me, and I also needed to be smarter to protect them. I picked up the textbooks that I had neglected for a long time and took the initiative to move into the university dormitory. However, this time, when I was in professional courses class, my classmates looked at me with some strange expressions. I turned my head and saw Pei-Guyan with bruises on his face. He took the initiative to sit next to me. His voice was bitter. "Xing, long time no see." 6. I stared at him as if he were a stranger. "Is there something wrong, classmate?" Pei-Guyan was stung by my distant gaze. His eyelids fluttered slightly, and his expression remained cold. "Well, do you need someone to help you with your studies? I'm really good at economics," he said clumsily. I took a deep breath to control myself. "Classmate, aren't you from the Department of Biology?" Pei-Guyan's eyes suddenly lit up. "You still remember?" I frowned and said nothing. Burying myself in reading the book, Pei-Guyan stared at me, his voice getting softer. "Although I'm not from the School of Business, I can learn." His Adam's apple bobbed. He had an expressionless face, but he stuttered so much that the tips of his ears turned red. "I can also learn other things." I looked at him in disbelief. "What things?" Pei-Guyan lowered his eyes, his gaze complicated. "All the things you like." I was stunned when I heard this. I really didn't have that much confidence to think that just because of my looks, Pei-Guyan 3 years ago would give up his pride and humbly pursue me. So, there was only one possibility. I turned cold and forced myself to control my anger, doing my best to stay calm, but Pei-Guyan still wouldn't let me go. He said softly, "You know, right?" I pretended not to hear him. The teacher had already entered the classroom, and the first day of my brand new life was about to begin, but Pei-Guyan persisted. He whispered, "Yuju, I owe you a good night." These words made me freeze instantly. In a trance, I seemed to be back on that tall building where the wind was strong and cold. I looked into the distance in despair, lit my last match, and the reply I got was an even colder and more desolate hell. I finally had to admit that Pei-Guyan, the one who remembered all my embarrassing and humble moments of pursuing love, he had also been reborn. My tongue was burning. I gritted my teeth and said, "What on earth do you want?" Pei-Guyan said, "Yuju, I didn't know that your family went bankrupt at that time. I regret treating you like that. I also forgive you for your hostility towards my sister. Let's start over. Let's be together again like in the previous life." Okay. 7. The teacher had already started the class. I was forced to shut up. I squeezed my pen tightly. The presence of Pei-Guyan beside me was really unbearable. Finally, those 90 minutes of torment passed, and I got up and left without hesitation. Pei-Guyan followed closely behind me. When we reached the stairwell, he grabbed my hand forcefully. "Yuju." I couldn't stand it anymore and slapped him hard. "Get lost." Pei-Guyan's head swayed, but he didn't let go. I was furious and slapped him twice more. "Get lost. Why do you think you can forgive me?" The students passing by had heard the commotion and were secretly stopping to watch. I felt ashamed. Why? Why was my first day of trying not to be a spoiled rich girl ruined by him again? Pei-Guyan's face, which already had bruises, now had slap marks and started to swell. But what's hateful is, he was still good-looking, with red eyes. He looked like a vulnerable male model. Pei-Guyan pursed his lips tightly. He held me firmly with both hands and finally couldn't hold back either. The pretense of trying his best to stay calm was completely torn apart. He stared at me. "Why do I think I can forgive you? You tell me why. You kept saying that you loved me, but after being reborn, you immediately latched onto another man." I laughed out of anger. Pei-Guyan showed his jealousy. "You don't even look at me anymore. Now that you have a new lover, you don't even glance at me. What's going on? After playing with me for 3 years in the previous life, are you bored and looking for something new?" I was in disbelief. How dare you slander me, Pei Guyan? I fawned over you for 3 years while you kept giving me the cold shoulder. Who was playing with whom exactly? Pei Guyan couldn't stand it anymore. It was you got me drunk, you seduced me, your love was incredibly cheap, you constantly coaxed me, said those shameless words, and tortured me, you humiliated me with money. The most hateful thing is, he was so angry that he couldn't speak. The corners of his eyes were red and swollen, he stared at me fiercely, as if he wanted to bite a piece of my flesh. Pei Guyan clenched his teeth with all his might to calm his breathing, but he still couldn't help letting out a furious growl. The most hateful thing is, why did you keep me in the dark? Why did you ask me to send you a good night message before you jumped off the building? Shinyuju, it was 8 o'clock in the morning, how could I not think that you were playing with me? That's just how you are. You've always been like this. You wouldn't even let me go when you died, you had to drag me to hell with you and make me suffer. I sneered, stop pretending, what suffering are you talking about? Although I, Shinyuju, am a spoiled rich girl, I've never done anything heartless like forcing others. Didn't I ask you? I asked you countless times if you liked me. If you didn't like me, you could have said so. If you hated me so much, you could have said it out loud. What did I seduce you with? What did I coax you with? It was clearly you who neither took the initiative nor refused. You and your foster sister colluded to treat me like an ATM machine and deceive me. Damn it. Pei Guyan flinched as if he had been pricked by a needle. He wanted to refute, but his excessive pride still made it difficult for him to confess his true feelings. He stalemated, enunciating each word with effort. It's not like what you think. I looked at him coldly. When my mother was in the hospital and we were in urgent need of money, I was so anxious that I called you but couldn't reach you. When I knocked on the door, I found that the apartment I bought for you had become the love nest for you and Ji Qing. I just wanted to get back a watch to pawn for money. Ji Qing looked at me coldly and mocked me, then pushed me away. I was so angry that I slapped her. That slap happened to be seen by you, and you still think I have hostility towards her until now. Pei Guyan's expression suddenly changed. His face turned as white as paper. What did you say? I said, so, was it all my misunderstanding? Isn't my Rolex submariner with you? Didn't Ji Qing become the mistress of that apartment? Didn't you look at me coldly? Didn't you always take Ji Qing's side whenever something happened, every single thing? How could I have wronged you so much, Pei Guyan? In the end, all you wanted was to have it both ways and earn money without sacrificing your dignity. You said I humiliated you with money, so why the hell did you accept it? I suddenly pushed away the stunned him. He wasn't prepared and was pushed against the wall by me. I walked away in big strides, but I hadn't gone far when he caught up with me. Pei Guyan said in a low voice, why wouldn't she give you the watch? Xiaoqing wouldn't do such a thing. Is there some misunderstanding? Misunderstanding your ass. I couldn't stand it anymore and kicked him. Pei Guyan let out a whimper and covered his stomach, but he still gritted his teeth and held on to me. Xiaozhu, please, wait a moment. It was rare for the arrogant him to show such a flustered and vulnerable look, but I didn't care anymore. Yuzhu. I turned around when I heard the voice. Su Mingluan was holding the car key on his index finger and walking towards me. The savior I had messaged for during class arrived in time. I said to him, take me away. Su Mingluan immediately blocked Pei Guyan, who still wanted to pester me. He took a closer look at Pei Guyan and, not surprised, said, why is it you again? You can't keep clinging to the same person when trying to climb up the social ladder. She's my fiancé now. Pei Guyan, who had been persistent and even glared at Su Mingluan with caution, suddenly changed his expression. He looked at me in disbelief. He's lying. I looked at him as if I were looking at those absurd years of mine. Pei Guyan, I've really given up on you. Stop pestering me. Pei Guyan was devastated. This was the first time in all these years that I had seen him so emotionally broken. He looked at me with red eyes, his lips opening and closing. In the end, he only said 3 words, impossible. What's impossible about that? Does he, Pei Guyan, really think he's an incredibly wonderful person in the world and that I can't live without him? Leaning against the car window, I sank deep into the memories of the past. In my previous life, at our first meeting, I left my blind date behind, wiped the blood off his face for him, and took off the watch on my wrist to pay off his debt. At our second meeting, he lay on the hotel bed with a blank look in his eyes, staring at me with a red face and not moving at all. That night, Pei Guyan wasn't actually as passive and helpless as he claimed. If someone is truly drunk, they can't even get up, so how could he have done those things by himself? Later, he was sometimes cold and sometimes warm towards me. He said he had to work part-time and his studies were heavy, but even the occasional dates he promised would always be cancelled because of his sister Ji Qing's minor illnesses. Only then did I vaguely realize that in Pei Guyan's heart, his sister's status was much higher than mine, much higher, far higher. At that time, I was someone who always got what I wanted and had never suffered, encouraged by Ji Qing and deceived by Pei Guyan's ambiguous attitude. I always thought that if I tried hard enough and took a gamble, I would definitely make him fall in love with me too. An innocent rich girl who put all her thoughts into love, thinking about it now. I was really naive back then. Every time I think of Pei Guyan, the stabbing pain in my chest has become numb and I feel nothing. I feel as if I'm peeking into someone else's life through a layer of fog. I will never like Pei Guyan again, Su Mingluan suddenly said. If there's anything that makes you unhappy, you can tell me. I looked up. What? He looked at me calmly, as if he had guessed something. Su Mingluan smiled and explained. Although our marriage is a business arrangement, I think I should still fulfill the basic responsibilities of a fiancé, he added. However, speaking of which, I was really a bit surprised when you agreed to marry me. Yuju, you don't seem like someone who would follow the rules, I said. Then what do I seem like? Su Mingluan, in the past, you were a bit gullible and kind-hearted, but you were also very passionate. You would definitely do whatever you wanted to do. I thought that one day you would have a big fight with your family and then go in search of your own love. I fell silent. Thinking of my previous life when I was bruised and battered, I couldn't help but let out a silent bitter laugh. If I hadn't left that blind date early in my previous life and had instead listened to more of Su Mingluan's wise words, maybe I wouldn't have ended up in that situation. Su Mingluan, I know you don't have much strong affection for me. What about you? Su Mingluan shrugged. We grew up together, although we're of similar age. I always think of you as a silly little sister. However, I like you very much. But for someone like me, liking someone may not take up the majority of my life, Su Mingluan pointed out. Love is just a social relationship, a fragile chain that, in most cases, needs to rely on money, honor, and emotional value to exist, and sometimes, even when all those conditions don't disappear, it will sadly fade away silently over time. But interests are solid and eternal. It sounds like you're very pessimistic about love. Then why do you still want to marry me? Su Mingluan smiled. It's not pessimism, but objectivity. The reason why I want to marry you is basically the same as the reason why you're willing to marry me. We're both wealthy children who grew up under the protection of our families. We've spent a lot of money and enjoyed many privileges that ordinary people can't have even after a lifetime of hard work. So it's time for us to give something back to our families. At this point, talking about pursuing love or freedom is just the willful behavior of a child. Then I wish us a pleasant cooperation, Su Mingluan gently added, but I also want to make one thing clear. Although I'm a pure rationalist, I'm not a heartless capitalist either. There's a little bit of humanity in my heart, and there's a small part of that humanity that belongs to love. And it's called Xinyuju. Although that part isn't big, I hope Miss Shen, who is used to seeing good things, will accept it. Hearing his extremely candid words, I couldn't help but laugh. 9. On the day of my engagement to Su Mingluan, Pei Guyan also came. He stared fixedly at the engagement flower arrangements and posters outside the hotel until his eyes turned red. None of this is real. She clearly likes me. He was extremely unwilling and pushed the flower baskets away insanely. Before he could fully vent his emotions, he was forcefully pressed to the ground by the security guards. Ji Qing's face turned pale and then red. She didn't have the memories of the previous life and didn't understand why all of a sudden, the man who had been filled with her in his heart and eyes would suddenly see her true colors and be so cold towards her. She also didn't understand why Pei Guyan would suddenly pester another woman as if he had gone crazy. She staggered over to help him up, but Pei Guyan pushed her away. Ji Qing finally couldn't hold back. Brother, why are you pestering a woman who doesn't like you? This is really unseemly. Pei Guyan finally looked up at her. You also know that this kind of thing is embarrassing. Then why did you lie to her behind my back, make her lose all face by chasing after me, just to make fun of her? Ji Qing was stunned. Who are you talking about? Pei Guyan's chest heaved violently. He stared at her. At this person who hadn't committed any mistakes yet, and it was like punching into cotton. He felt a sense of powerless irritability. This was a curse. Heaven had made him go back to the starting point of the story, but didn't give him any chance to atone for his mistakes. He could only helplessly watch those good opportunities slip through his fingers and could only hate the person who hadn't made any mistakes yet. Pei Guyan felt as if he had fallen into a stagnant lake. He weakly waved his hand at Ji Qing. Don't call me brother anymore, we're just neighbors who played together when we were children. Ji Qing, I don't want to see you again in the future. He turned around and looked at the cold-faced security guards surrounding him. Each of them had a look of vigilance and contempt, as if they thought he was some kind of person who hated the rich and deliberately came to cause trouble. Pei Guyan then realized that if I didn't love him, he couldn't enter my world at all. In the previous life, his indifference, his arrogance, and even his pretended ambiguity were all just the power I gave him because I liked him. He couldn't stand it anymore. All his previous indifference disappeared, and filled with regret, he knelt on the ground and growled, Shin Yuzhu, come out, Shin Yuzhu. When I appeared in front of him wearing the engagement dress, he suddenly couldn't say anything. He looked at me gently and said with great difficulty, Shin Yuzhu, what if I said that I actually fell in love with you before I even realized it? I couldn't help but open the chat window with Pei Guyan. The last message in it was still the good night he sent me by rote 2 months ago. This sentence was like cutting with a knife and removing the bones. It was as if his last backbone was being pulled out bloodily. He had no other way left. I lowered my head and said softly, Pei Guyan, you think your love is precious. But I don't need it anymore, I said distantly. Please leave. If you dare to appear in front of me again, I'll ask the security guards to escort you out. Pei Guyan's pupils shrank. He stared blankly at my departing figure, then buried his head deeply and let out a very faint sob. 10. I walked back to the banquet hall. Su Mingluan was chatting happily with my brother. When he saw me, he handed me a glass of champagne. Leaning down, he whispered with a hint of faint, unnoticeable jealousy, there really are people trying to snatch you away. Fortunately, I got engaged early. I smiled and shook my head. He asked softly, who was that person? I replied calmly, just someone I don't know well. The grudges of the previous life are now the dust of this life. From then on, my brand new life was just beginning.